Mission to explore Nepal.
My talk today is going to be about innovating new adventure tourism products in Nepal, opportunities and challenges, right? And just about myself, I'm Dawa Sherpa. I'm currently the CEO of Astra Group, under which Asian Trekking also falls. I'm currently the chairperson of the Himalayan Climate Initiative. Today, the talk is not going to talk too much about climate. We're going to talk more about tourism. So in brackets, I've also put down member program implementation subcommittee, Visit Nepal Year 2020. And you will see very clearly that this slide here is the template from the Visit Nepal Year campaign. And there is a reason for that. So I just mentioned a little bit about myself, so I don't need to go there again. But I also want to note that I'm also an aspiring kickboxer, a paraglider, a skydiver, and a scuba diver. So those are things that I want to do and that I'm no good at, that I still look at others and I know that there's so much more to do in life, right? So I'll come on to that in a bit. Now, Visit Nepal Year 2020. Now, I want to go back to Visit Nepal because this was a great opportunity for Nepal to introduce adventure tourism products to the world. Nepal, I've known, and my family has known for a long, long time that Nepal is a mecca for adventure, right? And the Visit Nepal Year 2020, I had the great opportunity to be on the board of the program implementation subcommittee together with Suraj Vaidya, who was the convener. And he, in fact, called me over. And when he asked me to be on the committee, he said, Dawa, I want you to come up with crazy ideas, just crazy ideas for Nepal, whatever you can think of. We need those so that we can introduce new products to Nepal. And I said, that's fantastic. That's exactly the sort of stuff that I love doing. And so can't just be crazy. We had, we had targets. First one was we had, the overall goal of Visit Nepal, 2 million tourists in Nepal. It was to increase the average daily spending of the tourists, increase the length of stay of the tourists, and most importantly, it was to give them lifetime experiences. And there's nothing in the world that gives a lifetime experience than adventure, right? Adventure is something that is life-changing. And there are many people who come to Nepal and come to places like Nepal where they get adventure, they go back with a different outlook of their lives, of the world. And so Nepal is such a perfect place for this. But unfortunately, Nepal, for some reason, has not been able to take the lead in this, in the adventure tourism field, other than very specifically mountaineering and trekking. So that was something that I gave myself the task of remedying, of fixing. I wanted to make Nepal not only a mecca for just mountaineers and trekkers, I wanted it to be a destination for all sorts of people in the adventure field, nevertheless, but not necessarily just the mountaineers. So the first thing that we did was we invited American elite parachutists to come and set world records on the highest drop zone, as we call it. These are already people who were coming to Nepal over a number of years, but they had something great in mind, but the time was never right. The permit processes were difficult, the logistics themselves are difficult to land on a mountain and so on. And so Visit Nepal presented the perfect opportunity where all of this aligned, that the government was willing to explore new ideas, that there were people involved who understood the logistics and were willing to give that logistics, namely me and my team. And so this was the first thing that we attempted already in 2019, in fact. And so when we brought the Americans over, the first practice flights we did actually with the Visit Nepal banner flying below the parachutes. On the actual world record attempt, we didn't, of course, for safety reasons. And we were based out of Shanboche Airport, which is above Nanchi Bazaar. And on October 27th, 5 of these American and British skydivers landed at 6,140 meters on the side of a mountain. And there in the picture you see, that's not me skydiving, that's AJ. I'm standing there in the back with the radio. And the reason I'm standing there is because I was the drop zone safety officer on that particular expedition. Now, talking about innovating, I come from a background of mountaineering. I know nothing about skydiving. But when this idea came, I reached out to these Americans, right, our friends in America, and said, this is something that I want to be involved in. I want you guys to come and do this in Nepal, not in Aconcagua, not in Denali, not elsewhere in the world. You got to do it here. And so for that, I knew mountains, I knew mountaineering. I knew that if these guys land on the side of a mountain, I can get them off the mountain. But I didn't know how to actually marshal them into the wedge call. I didn't know how to marshal them into the mountain. And so for that, I actually had to travel to Arizona and train with these guys over the summer before they came over in October. And, a side story, sometimes, trying to do new things and crazy things, it has its costs. On one of my skydives, I actually landed awkwardly and I broke my ankle. But, c'est la vie. You do what you love and everything is worth it. Nepal actually has one of the best places in the world to do air sports, because of the 365 days, we have normally more than 300 days of sunny weather, and we have very, very predictable winds, mostly coming from the south towards the north. And so Nepal actually is a very good place to do air sports. It's just that the regulations in Nepal are very tight or very difficult. One of the main challenges that I've always found with doing anything in Nepal is not actually the activity itself, not actually doing the climbs or the jumps or the flights or whatever. It's actually getting the paperwork done, because our tourism acts and regulations are so outdated, they're not keeping up with the times. And so when we go for permits, the biggest problem is that there's nothing written about it, and the ministry doesn't know whether we can give you they can give us permits or not. And so there is a real urgent need to bring our rules and regulations into the modern age. And there's so much happening in the world of adventure that we're still stuck. Nepal is actually still stuck in what you could essentially say the 1960s, when Colonel Jimmy Roberts brought trekking to Nepal. We're still stuck in an age of just considering, mountain tourism as trekking and mountaineering, when we can do crazy stuff like landing on sides of mountains, skydiving and so on. So this is one of the things that I have been very passionate about, and I do keep a dialogue with the ministry. I go there on a regular basis. I know many of the bureaucrats in the ministry personally, and it's something I'm not actually spiteful or angry at the ministry. It's something that we as the private sector need to engage with the ministry and try to bring them up to the international standard, right? Or at least bring them updated to the international standard. So that's something that I find is very important. And whether it's about mountaineering or skydiving or paragliding, that's something that I keep doing. And on that point, innovating is a lifestyle. Okay, so you have to be committed to it. When you do new things, you have to be committed to it. It's not something businesses need to innovate, right? So we need to change with the times, okay? But I'm not talking about incremental changes, I'm not talking about, like changing your menu if you're a restaurateur, not changing your menu once in a while. I'm talking about, doing new and unique things, right? Or bringing unique things that are done elsewhere to our country. So for that, you need to have everybody on board. And to give it long-term sustainability, you need to make sure that the government is on board, the ministry is on board, and I'm very, very passionate about this. So I will now go on to the next event. So on the point of permits and so on, last year, 2020, we organized the world's highest figure skating exhibition and ice hockey match as part of the Visit Nepal campaign. And again, it was an idea I had been sitting on for about 4 or 6 years, that, our mountains are full of these beautiful lakes. And these lakes, they all get frozen in the winter. And it's such a shame, because the winter months, unlike in Europe, are very dry and very sunny in Nepal. And they're actually really nice times to visit. I love visiting my village in Kumjung in the winter. I love going to the mountains in the winter, because the weather is so good and the air is so crisp. And I've always thought it's such a shame that we call it the off season, you know. So to remedy that, I said to Suraj, we need to do something to promote Nepal in the winter, and we have the perfect thing for it that nobody else can offer, and that is ice skating. And it can be done anywhere in Nepal, ice skating. It doesn't have to be the Everest region. It could be in Gosai Kunda. Many people are now going to Gosai Kunda with a helicopter, you know, and I see loads of photos and videos of people actually walking on the ice. You know, how lovely would it be to be able to take just a pair of skates and just skate there for the afternoon or for the morning and then come back home. But then you also have, you know, everywhere like Foksundo all the way to, you know, to Jumla and Humla, you have lakes all over Nepal. So this is something that I really feel that Nepal can promote and promote really strongly, because wild ice skating, as they call it, or alpine skating, is a growing trend around the world. And Nepal is again at the forefront in terms of the potential. And if we don't actually seize this opportunity, because it's still in its infant stage, I believe that we're going to lose that opportunity to other countries who are going to establish themselves as skating destinations. And now here comes the problem. There is nothing written in the Ministry of Forestry's rules and regulations about ice skating, whether it's allowed or not. Skiing is allowed. Paragliding is allowed. Paramotoring is allowed. Mountain biking is allowed, which I'll get onto later. There are all sorts of different things that are allowed, but ice skating is not. So all these things are allowed, but because it's not in the Ministry of Forestry's rules and regulations, the de facto stance of the bureaucracy is always, when in doubt, shut it down. When in doubt, shut it down. Always remember that if it's not written down anywhere, they'll just say, no, it's not allowed, right? So we actually, even last year, had a problem with this, because even with the Visit Nepal 2020 campaign, which was run by the government of Nepal, by the Ministry of Tourism, we had to wait until the very last, or second to last day, until we got the permit to actually step on the ice. How ridiculous is that? That we were there on a government of Nepal campaign to promote tourism in Nepal, but we didn't have all the permits. We had the permits from the Ministry of Tourism, but we didn't have the permit from the Ministry of Forestry, and therefore the army actually came running after me and told me to stop and turn around. This is the problem in Nepal, that we have different governmental agencies who don't talk to each other. In the end, at the 11th hour, it all works out, of course. You know, in Nepal, everything works out at the 11th hour. But there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of needless concern in between. And in general, especially not adventure tourism, buying things because you're going up into the mountains for an extended period of time. So what you do not need is this uncertainty of whether we can do something or we can't do something. We need to have, you know, a solid answer from the government. Yes, you have the permit. Yes, you can do it. And this continues to be a problem, not only here in terms of, you know, the ice skating, but also even if you look today at the COVID situation, one government ministry is coming out with one set of regulations with regard to quarantining, with regard to whether visa on arrivals will be given or not. And the other government agency is coming out with its own press release saying the exact opposite. So government agencies also need to be talking to each other. And this is another big challenge that Nepal faces. It's, again, like I said, actually doing things in the mountains, doing these things is not as big of a challenge as getting the government on board and getting all the permits and everything done, getting a clear line of communication from them. So again, one of the challenges, I keep saying this, is having the government on board, having a dialogue with the government, and continuing to bring them in alignment with what we are trying to achieve. Now, putting that aside, it was a very proud moment on the 14th of February when we actually got to host that event. We had a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, Patrick Chan from Canada, who did an exhibition figure skate there. We had Jeremy Abbott, US gold medalist. We had Sergey from Russia, Russian champion. We had the Russian national team captain, ice hockey team captain. We had the Indian ice hockey team players also in Nepal playing. And Every single one of them said it was a life-changing experience and that they would like to come every single year to do this, and they would bring their friends. Problem, of course, is can we or can we not invite them? This is always a problem with with being with bringing new things, right? So this is what we're working on. Hopefully later this year, later this month on 14th of February, I will be able to go back and do the second Skate Nepal event in celebration of the first one we did last year. And this time I'd like to take young Sherpas from our village. We don't have any tourists, but this year we want to go ourselves. We have skates there. And I do a bit of skating. I know a bit of skating. So we're going to be out there on the ice, and we're going to try to at least send a message to the world that even though we don't have tourists, we are still doing these activities here, and as soon as everything normalizes, please do come and join us. So that's something that we want to do. Now, on another point, when you think of mountains and adventure, dainty models, who always wear heels all the time, and that's what I thought as well. In 2019, Dr. Pankaj Gupta and Ramila Nemku, they own a boutique here in Kathmandu called Casa. And they came to me and said they would like to organize the world's highest fashion show. And at first I was like, I'm not really into fashion, and I don't really care too much about all of that. I think it's a bit of a circus. Very, I said it to their face. But then when I got to understand why they want to do it, and what Ramila ji said was, fashion is one of the most polluting industries in the world, right? And they want to bring this to, they want to highlight this. And the second thing is that all their products, they're biodegradable. And the whole trip is going to be run in a way that is sustainable. So they're using biodegradable soap. They were calculating their carbon footprint. They were minimizing their water use. They were calculating even to the drop how much water they're using. So they had actually planned all of this. And the best thing about it was a Nepali-led initiative. And so when I heard it, I said, okay, that sounds something that's very interesting for me. But they had this concept of like, we want to do something up in the mountains. But what is it? How do we get it done? And I told them that Jan 26, not Jan 26 per se, but late Jan would be a good time to do it. Because the air is crisp and there's nobody else there. So you'll have the whole area to yourself. So it was actually the first Visit Nepal event that was organized in 2020, and it went off with a bang. We looked after the logistics part of it. As you can see, there are Sherpas there, our guys who, brought them all up there. We set up the ramp. We did all of that for them. Now, coming back to innovation and not about fashion innovation, why is this important for us? Like, why would we want to even be interested in telling this to fashion designers or models and so on? Because the interest of any sort of tourism activity is to promote itself, and the fashion industry has a huge global reach, right? It can get to the corners of the world. You see all these kids wearing all these clothes and all these apparel and everything that these global superstars are wearing. And so we had the opportunity to use that medium to showcase Nepal, but not only showcase Nepal in the wrong way, but in the right way, to say, do fashion as well. And that's my interest as a tourism entrepreneur. And so when we did this, it got global recognition. It had, all over the world, this news went out. So the actual documentary that's being made about it is going to be out later this year. It was supposed to be launched in 2020, and hopefully it will be coming out very soon. And you guys will be able to see what was all done on that actual event. Just an incredibly proud moment for all of us. And Nepal keeps breaking these records of doing the most amazing things, and we're also making our dent in the fashion industry, and hopefully that will translate into more business for us, more sustainable business for us in the future. Unfortunately, I am not allowed to show the video. There is a teaser for this, but I'm not allowed to show the video because it's not open to the public domain yet. But sure, very soon it will be coming out. And anyways, Casa has some 25,000 followers on their social media. So I think when they put it out, then you'll all know. Okay, lockdown time. Then we had COVID in 2020, and a lot of us stayed at home, going crazy, and myself included. But it was a good time, I think, for all of us to reflect on our lives. Of course, many of us have shared with each other, I'm sure, with friends and family about the things that we realized are important. Human connections, going out there and doing things. Not so much the things we own, but the things we do, right? I think more than ever in 2021, people realize that it's not buying things that's important, it's actually having experiences that's important. So I imagine a lot of people will be going out there doing new and exciting things in this year, especially as the vaccines roll out. Now, I was in the same situation. I was stuck in Kathmandu, and I kept on thinking of, dreaming of being out in the mountains. And so my friend Sonam, who's in this picture, and I, we were just sitting there and saying, "Gaon janu cha," we have to go to the village. We had some work to do there, and I said to Sonam, "Hey Sonam, if I can get some permits for mountain bikes, do you mind if I cycle down?" And Sonam said, "And what? I have to walk down." So I had to get 2 permits, one for him and one for me, and it was just amazing because there were so many people who had applied for permits for mountain biking in the Everest region in the past years and had always been denied. But due to COVID, the government has somehow recognized, the ministries have somehow recognized that we do need tourism, we do need more height up in the mountains. And so I was very surprised that we actually did get the permit to bike. And so, we carried our bikes all the way up to Kalapatar, which is just above Everest Base Camp. If you see the picture here, Everest Base Camp is on the white glacier just behind me, behind my helmet, and Kalapatar is that plateau to the left of it, the big rocky plain there. And so we carried it up to Dingboche, and then due to some reasons, we had to call in a helicopter. My brother, he needed to go back to Kathmandu urgently. Nima, who was on the trip with us. And so we called in a helicopter, and the helicopter took us up to Kalapatar and dropped us there. And we didn't know it at the time, but apparently we became the first people to heli-bike all the way from Kalapatar down to Namche Bazaar. Again, we're looking at adventure tourism. We have to look out of the box, right? Again, these trails are normally there for trekkers and mountaineers going up there, for yaks carrying all the bags and everything like that. But in the winter, it's pretty much like COVID. We see very, very few tourists going up there. And so it would be a really good time for mountain bikers to use that time to go down the trails and enjoy the mountains. And we would be bringing a new type of tourist into the area, a new type of adventurer into the area that would normally not have come there, right? And so it's a perfect marriage just for the local people who would normally have to close their lodges and come down to Kathmandu, and it would be perfect also for the mountain bikers who've always dreamed of going up into the Everest region. So this is something that is already gaining traction. After I came back, I was contacted by a group of mountain bikers in Kathmandu who wanted to do the same thing. So I advised them and I told them, these are the things you have to do to get the permit, and this is where you go, and so on. And I was very happy to know that on New Year's Day they did this very same thing. They cycled down from Kalapatar all the way to Namche as well, and now it's becoming more and more popular. And I hope that we will be able to continue doing this, and not only on the main Everest Base Camp trail, but also my interest is to do it later on in the side valleys of Thame, which goes up to Nangpala, which is the border with Tibet, and perhaps also the Gokyo Valley. And so we need to start to spread that benefit further out, not just on the Everest Base Camp trail. And that's something that I'll be working on as we go further into this. Something that I'm personally doing now, as I said in the beginning, is, I'm aspiring to be more than just a climber and a trekker. And I understand that there's a lot I don't know, and there's a lot I would like to do. And one of those things is to fly paragliders. I've started, I started on a course in December. I'm on my 30th flight now, so it's incredibly fun. But actually, there's more of a reason, a bigger reason why I actually thought this would be a good thing to do, because most mountaineering accidents happen on the descent, not while you're climbing, but actually while you're descending. And as long as you do a good takeoff, the actual flight itself is much safer than climbing down a mountain. So with that in mind, I have some projects coming up, and I hope to take this up into the mountains and fly off the summits. I've already got clients who are doing this with me in March, and hopefully this will become something that is new and exciting for Nepal. But it certainly is not something very unique to Nepal, because it's a global trend, as I said. And mountaineers nowadays, more and more are doing things like climb and fly. A paraglider, a decent paraglider now, can weigh less than 4 kilograms. So you carry that to the top of a mountain and you fly down. Something that took you 3 days to get up to the top, you could reach down to the bottom in about 20-25 minutes. So what a fantastic way to get up a mountain. Incredibly fun. And that's something that I'm building up towards. Now, all of this, having said all of this, I think you'll get a sense that doing things differently excites me, right? There's two ways in business, as in any business, right? Adventure tourism is a business. There's two ways to distinguish yourself. Either you have to be the best, or you have to do things that are different than the rest, right? Sounds a bit cliche. Either be the best or do things that are different than the rest. And I try to be the best, but of course there are always people who are going to be better than me. I accept that. But I always have a curious mind. And so I always try to look at things from a different way, and so the way my personal process of doing things differently, of bringing new ideas to the market, to my business, I'm always curious. I always accept the fact that there's a lot I don't know. I'm not an expert at anything. I'm a jack of all trades. I will, if somebody tells me, hey Dawa, let's try this, I'm always up for it. Now, I have no pride. I'm ready to fall on my face and I have people laugh at me, that's fine. But I want to have those experiences, because that's the only way you learn, right? So if you want to innovate, you have to be willing to also take those risks and to be able to say that it's fine if, I'll give it a try, but it's fine if it doesn't work out, But always have a game plan, always have an objective in mind. If you do something without an objective, that's an expense, right? So innovation without an objective is an expense. But if you actually have an objective, that's an investment, right? So if you're going to innovate, you must know why you're innovating. What are you headed towards, right? So always think of that. And one thing I'll say is never do it for money. If you're going to innovate, if you're going to try new things, don't do it for money. If you're doing it for money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Do it because you enjoy it. Do it because you get sleepless nights dreaming about it, thinking about it. Only then will you be successful. If you're doing it just because it's, adventure tourism is a business, I'll make money, it's not going to work out. Maybe it'll work out once or twice, but you're not going to be able to sustain it, because it's only when you live and breathe it, that's when things happen. That's when you keep developing. That's when you keep bringing new things to the table, right? So don't do it for the money. Do it for your own passion, okay? So and it doesn't have to be adventure tourism. I know there's a lot of students out here And maybe not all of you are into adventure tourism. It could be anything, right? But one thing in life is do something that interests you. Because when it interests you, it's not work, it's not a chore. And you won't even know that hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours, have passed while you have been slogging at something. You will have enjoyed the process, regardless of what came out of it, whether it was a success or not. Okay? So another thing, right? So if you're going to do something new, like I said, first you need to be interested in doing it. Then second, like say that you're going to do something, right? So look for a gap, look for a problem that you want to solve. That's something I'm interested to solve. Then look at your own strengths. Are my strengths able to solve that or bring this to reality? If not, then where are my weaknesses and can I develop on that? And I really value that process of saying, I'm not good enough for this, I don't have the strength to do this. Then I realize where my weaknesses are, and then I develop those so that I can bring that to reality, bring whatever project it is that I want to do to reality. So, again, you build yourself up little at a time. So not only are you bringing new innovative products to the adventure world, but you're also developing yourself in the process. Okay. Never be too proud to ask for expert advice. Be humble, always ask for help, right? And as long as you're humble, people will always help you, and say what you want to do, because when you say what you want to do, then people will come behind you and they will support you. I have found in everything that I've done in my life, I've always found that in my life, when I tell people I want to do something new, something crazy, something different, there will always be people say, "Nagar Dawa, don't do that, it's stupid, whatever." But there will be a hell of a lot of people who will say to you, "That's great, now we want to support you." Actually, I was thinking the same thing. Can we do it with you? Like my friend Sonam, who said, "Hey, I want to cycle down with you." So you always have people who will egg you on. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. You'll get supporters. At the same time, you will also motivate yourself because you make that commitment to yourself. Okay? And that's it, really. Finally, the biggest challenge I've always found is to be brave enough to do something different. And I don't think, bravery, like that courage comes from like having all the answers, having everything set out. I think you just have to know that once you step on this path, once you try to do something, there will be people who will support you. If you don't have the answers today, you will work, trust yourself, you will work at it to find the answers, and you will come up with new ideas. So those are my sort of nuggets of wisdom, I guess.